This is a message for everyone, but especially for those who have decided to stay away from the more political furry YouTube channels and Twitter accounts. And don't worry, I'm not going to try to make you take a side or try to convince you to make some kind of political stand. All I'm asking is that you listen. Just give me a few minutes of your time, because I have something important that I think you should know. The political spectrum has shifted in the furry fandom. Or maybe it's always been like this and it's only really become important now. We're used to seeing the spectrum as left, or liberal, middle, and then right, or conservative. And then on both ends you have the extremists. On the extreme left you get groups like Antifa, and on the extreme right you get groups like neo-Nazis. But with furries it's a little bit different. We don't really have much of a right. For furries it's normal to be liberal. Most furries are liberal. And what little conservatives we do have are also pretty liberal. So what we actually have in the fandom looks more like this. It's normal to be liberal in the center. What we would call right-wing are actually more like centrists, which have some liberal and some conservative views. It's very rare to find actual traditional right-wing furries, and even more rare to find the extreme right. What we do have is an unusual amount of people who are on the more extreme left, and I'm not going to group them all together. Not every person on the far left is violent and as extreme as Antifa, but what we do have is a large group of people who I call progressives. So what are progressives? Well, progressives believe that in order to make the fandom better or safer, they need to kick out anyone who might cause problems. And simply put, this devolves into bully tactics. But not the typical kind of bullies. They won't beat you up and take your lunch money, though they might threaten to. They're more like social bullies. If you disagree with them, they will find something to label you as, usually a Nazi, and do their best to convince others that you are in fact a Nazi. And they'll label all your friends as Nazis or bigots. And as liberals, our first instinct is to condemn bigots and Nazis, because those groups run counter to our identity as furries, to be accepting and loving and tolerant and basically everything anti-Nazi. So naturally, of course, we don't want to disagree with progressives because doing so makes it look like we're defending Nazis. And then the progressives have won. They've successfully ostracized another furry or group of furries. And let me be clear, almost all of the time, the people who are being ostracized aren't Nazis or bigots in any shape or form. They're just average furries who have different ideas of what the fandom should be. And this form of bullying works. It works really well. And a lot of the time, I think the progressives know that they're bullies, and maybe they don't even want to be, but they think that they are doing it for the greater good. They justify it by quoting Karl Popper, saying, "We can't tolerate intolerance, because then the intolerant people would get rid of the tolerant ones." That's what they mean when they say it's not safe for the fandom to tolerate everyone. But I just want to say, they're wrong. See, we can tolerate intolerance. What progressives forget is that Popper said you should only be intolerant when there is a very real threat to your liberty and personal freedom. And that just doesn't happen. Because the people in the fandom who get accused of being Nazis, they have no power. Even if they were actual Nazis, they can't take anything from you. They can't hurt you. Ranting on Twitter and posting memes is the extent of their power. So it's okay to tolerate them. You don't have to agree with them. You can simply ignore them. Because ignoring someone is tolerance. Ignoring someone is the same as saying, you do what you want, I'm going to do my own thing. Unlike the right, the progressive left actually has power in the community. They serve as admins on furry websites and sit on boards for conventions. They can ban you from those places and cut you off from large portions of the community. And they can use their voice and influence, so when they accuse someone of being something, it's heard and it sticks. And progressives will certainly call me a Nazi for saying all of this. They'll call me a Nazi supporter because I'm saying to tolerate people who they have labeled as Nazis. But I don't care. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I've seen the future, and I'm going to tell you what will happen. The progressive left is unsustainable because all they do is tear things down. We've seen it before in gaming and comics and many other subcultures, and it will happen in this community. It's already happening. First, the progressives get rid of and stigmatize a sort of fringe people who might actually be bigots. Then their targeting becomes a little bit broader. They get rid of the people who are friends of the bigots or associated with them in some way. Then they broaden and start targeting people who just joke about these sorts of things, comedians and such. Then they start targeting people who just don't agree with them politically. And this is kind of where we're at right now. If you're a conservative, they don't want you in the fandom. Next, they'll start targeting people in the center. People like me and you, just average furries. They already do that to me to some extent. They'll say, if you aren't with us, then you're against us, and try to intimidate you into joining them. And if you don't, they'll label you as a Nazi supporter as well, because ignoring the so-called Nazis is tolerance. But the truth is, the more people they kick out of their group, the less powerful they become. They start going after content creators and artists and people who run the websites and furry convention boards they are part of, but who don't agree with their methods. They'll alienate the average furry, and then they'll start turning on each other. And soon their entire group collapses. I've seen it before over and over, and it always ends up the same. So I say to you, the average furry, don't be afraid. Because even though the progressives might have some power now, even though they might ban you from their websites and exclude you from their groups, we can simply ignore them too. We can build new websites, ones founded once again on tolerance. And our new websites and our new reinvigorated inclusive fandom will grow and thrive, while the progressives only continue to tear each other apart. They will become a tiny, insignificant group preaching hatred and intolerance, and no one will listen to them. We can do better. Even to them, we can say, I tolerate your intolerance. We don't have to force anyone to stop doing what they are doing, but we can still show them that there is a better way and hope that they choose that path for themselves. And we can do this through tolerance and love. And when they want to leave that mess of anxiety and moral panic that being on the extreme edge has created, they can rejoin the rest of the fandom and just be furries again. We will accept them back. So turn your attention away from the politics and ignore it, because the extreme right has no power in the fandom, and the power of the extreme left is fleeting. Don't let the hysteria of either side infect you. It is us who have the power, because we understand that there are many different types of people in the fandom, and we accept everyone into our fold. We tolerate intolerance. Shift your focus from those who only tear each other down and place it on those who build up the community. Follow the artists and the animators, the fursuit makers, the game developers, the musicians and dancers, the YouTube content creators, the people with the resources and the willpower to pull everything together. And yes, even each other, with just your positivity and your tolerance. So go out and build.